What's up, guys? This is my 2010 Ford Ranger with the 4.0 V6. This engine is actually out of I think 2005 Mustang. It only has about 103,000 miles on it, but as you might know if you're looking up this video, the 4.0 that Ford made from, I think they started making this instead of the 3.0 in like the late 90s, but I'm not even gonna say because I think I'm wrong. So maybe early 2000s to like 2011. This engine, the biggest kind of handicap that it has is that just the timing chain guides in it get really brittle. And one thing that a lot of people do to kind of avoid them breaking prematurely is keep the tension on them good, because if you have slack in your chain and it's beating around on the timing chain guides, it's probably going to wear them out a lot quicker. So I think that the guides go out as well. I started having a slight rattle on cold start, and it happened like 3 times, and never while it was running, just on cold start. And so I decided to go ahead and do my timing chain guides, or tensioners, sorry, not the guides. So I went ahead and pulled this front one. I haven't even gotten to the second one, and you'll see why. So I pulled this front one, and when I took it out, it didn't actually have a crush washer on it. And the new ones actually come with this. These are Cloyce, and the new ones that I got actually come with the little aluminum crush washer. Now if you look at the Ford diagram, it has a thin like black, I guess it's like a stainless or some sort of hardened steel washer, and that is what I thought came from the factory with it, but I'm 99% sure mine didn't have one. So I've ran into some issues with this job. I have now taken this part out, put it back in, taken it out about 4 or 5 times, I think. And if you want to know how to do it, I'm not going to film me doing it. I'm mainly just explaining this as a warning to anyone who's going to be doing this job, just to be super careful. I haven't fixed it. I'm about to try, hopefully for the last time, to fix it. But the quickest way to access it is so first you just remove this intake hose right here. You'll loosen those 2 clamps and pull this line off. And then the second step to get to it as quickly as possible is to take a let's see, where is it? I believe it's a T30. Yeah, a T30. And you don't need one quite this long. This is just what I've got, but you'll need a bit extender. And you can get in there it's got like little access holes. There's 6 bolts, 2 on each side close to the front, and then 1 on each side on the back there. If you pop those 6 bolts, have this removed, you can lift this up, and it's pretty easy to fit like your ratchet or your Milwaukee ratchet in there, and pop those 3 bolts for the coolant housing, the top of the coolant housing. It's kind of like a multi-part thermostat housing. And once you've done that, then you gain access to behind the thermostat there will be a, let's see, where's mine at? There will be a coolant sensor like this one. It's got a little, just a little retaining clip that holds it in. So you unplug it, stick a flathead down in there, and pop that retaining clip. Be really careful. I mean, when I popped it off, it kind of like went back into the valley, but with the manifold up, you can reach back in there and get it. So it's not really a big deal. Just try not to drop it down behind these accessory brackets. So now if you've gotten to that point, you have full access to actually use a socket on a long extension. You can fit like a full impact socket on it. You don't have to like grind down your socket to try and fit it. Oh, one thing I did do, some of them I think have 2 coolant sensors right there. Mine didn't, and it's just plugged. Let's see. One second. So you can see there's like 2 holes there, and that second one on the right, or closest to the camera, that one is just plugged on my truck. So I actually kind of like chipped off the plastic so that I could fit the socket on better. So I think if you've got that second sensor, you actually have to pull the whole thermostat housing if you want to use a socket. But you can use a box end wrench from the side. The tensioner is, I believe, a 26 millimeter. I was using a 27 and didn't quite fit. But then an inch and a 16th fit pretty nice. It's not perfectly snug, but you know, did the trick. What I got. Don't have inch and a 32nd or whatever the metric wrench is that it takes. I don't have it. So now this is the warning part of the video. When I installed the tensioner, I ended up cross-threading it and having to use the old part as a tap to re-tap those threads. I mean, it was a nightmare. But 2, if you look at this crush washer, you might be able to tell it's kind of like been squished, kind of like it's wider on one side, you know, it's oblong or something. It did not come like that. They come round, and it actually presses on to the head of the tensioner. This is the one for the passenger bank. But that crush washer presses on. I've actually got the one for the driver's side in the freezer so that I can press that crush washer on, because it didn't seem to want to go on. When I first did the job though, I installed the part with the crush washer, and it didn't seat properly on the tensioner. And this is after I had already cross-threaded it and tried to fix that. And this last time I installed it, the threads actually seemed fine, so I think that's fixed. But the reason it cross-threads so easy is because if you look down in there, it's really hard to see. You might be able to see it better from this angle. If you look right there, that oil port, see, look at my threads, and there's some oil in them, but those threads are just marred up. That oil port is at the start of the threads. So if you don't have the tensioner in there perfectly square, if you're fighting against the spring tension in it, because it may already be pressed up against the guide, and if you have to fight that tension, then it'll want to cock to one side, especially if you don't have things removed like you should, and it wants to cross thread. And then my crush washer didn't seat all the way on the tensioner, so when I installed it, I guess it just like shifted and left an opening, and that's like, I read on the forum something like 60 psi of oil. I don't know if that's accurate, but I think that's what one of the guys said. And it just sprayed oil and it just gushed out of there, filled the whole valley. This is the second time it's done that. I did it just a little bit ago, and this second time is because I took it off, removed the crush washer, cleaned up the surface, and tried to install it without the crush washer since mine didn't have one on it originally. Did all that, put it all back together, and it did the same thing again. So this time I'm going to use the crush washer again and try and, use it properly and get it seated correctly, and we'll see if it seals. I'm going to try and clean that surface up a little bit, but yep. All right, hopefully this is the last time putting all of this back together on this job, at least. I'm pretty happy with how it's seated. It seems to be flush all the way around, as well as I can tell. I've got the rag in here just in case it leaks a little bit of oil. I want to know about it. But who knows, it may just pour oil out like it has previously. So I've already primed it. So I unplugged the coil so that I could crank it for a few seconds and get oil pressure to that tensioner. That way I'm not just running it at idle with it dry for a second. So now it's time to start it up and see if there's any oil. All right, I'm gonna run out there and check. It's not pouring out like it was, but it is leaking. So, time to roll it outside again, but with it being that little amount of oil, I don't know if... I mean, that's quite a bit for it to leak that much that quickly. That sucks. Yeah, there wasn't that much down below before. So it's looking like we might be doing a head swap. Yep. All right, so the last video I made on the 4.0 Ford Ranger here, I had not fixed the problem. It was still leaking a little bit of oil around the tensioner here. It was just seeping out still, and I had torqued it to spec and then some, just a little bit past spec. And I guess because I boogered the threads up so bad, it needed a little bit more, but I had determined that, you know, it was either I knew it was in there straight, and it was either get it to stop leaking, or I was gonna have to pull the head off my donor engine anyways, or it's actually the engine that came out of this truck originally, and do a head replacement. So I decided, you know, it's worth it to just try and tighten it down a bit more, see if I can get it to seal, rather than just give up and do the head. So that ended up working. I don't know what I tightened it down to. If I had to guess, I think the spec is around 55. I would guess I probably tightened it to like 80 foot-pounds or so. And I think it's just because the threads were damaged. It needed more to be able to actually squeeze and seal. I'm not sure the physics on that, but it did stop leaking. I kind of just did increments of tightening it a little more, starting it, checking it, and it got to the point where it was just a tiny drop after about 15 seconds. I went a little bit tighter after that, and no more leak. So that was a few weeks ago now, and I've been driving it mostly every day, and I haven't had any issues with that. But after doing this job, see, when I was in here, I also did an EGR delete. So I put this plate on there with the gasket, and I plugged the hole for the EGR tube down there. Don't look too close at the welds. And since then, I'm now having a cylinder 5 misfire. So I may make another video diagnosing that. The steps are pretty simple, and usually it's an easy fix, but I've already done some of the diagnostic work for that, and it's seeming like it's a little more serious. Could just be an intake manifold leak or something on that spot, or something like that, but it's not the spark plug. I did already change that. So yeah, that about wraps it up. That's a not fun job for how simple it should be. Mac looks like she is about to run. Come here. She sees something. Anyways, yeah, so that wraps it up for that job. I still haven't done the passenger side, but that did not fix my cold start chain rattle. So all that for basically nothing. I'll do the passenger side and see if it's coming from that side here in the next couple weeks probably, and try and fix that misfire. So hopefully more videos to come on this truck. It's a pretty nice vehicle. So thanks for watching this long video.